My name's Ant Parsons. I'm in a privileged position at the moment of working for both OxLEP Business and OxLEP Skills. You'll see both logos down at the bottom. So this is a skills-focused grant scheme that's being delivered by the OxLEP Business team. So really are bringing together all of the possible strengths of OxLEP for the benefit of the citizens of Oxfordshire. This is about helping the businesses, but ultimately this is about helping the citizens as well, and helping to remove barriers to individuals who might want to take up an apprenticeship, but for some reason, whatever that reason is, they've not been able to do it. So that's what this is all about. I'm hoping that most of the people here today are businesses, because to apply for this grant, you need to be a business, not an apprentice. This is not for apprentices to apply for. If you are a potential apprentice and you're here, fantastic, great. Capture all this information, go and tell your boss that he should be looking at this, because it would be brilliant for you and for other apprentices in your organisation. So, quick overview of what we are covering today. Welcome and introductions. Well, I've briefly introduced myself. We'll introduce everybody else as they get involved. Next, we're going to cover an introduction to the Social Contract programme. So that's the overall programme that this grant scheme is part of. Then we're very lucky to have Eliza Higginbottom here with us today. She's going to be able to talk to us a little bit about what it's like to have an apprentice and how an apprentice can be a key part of enabling business success. Then I'll go through the grant scheme. That's why you're here. You all want to know, okay, what's the detail here? Are we eligible? How do we apply? When do we get the money? What can we do with it? So I'll go through all of that detail. I'll then set out the next steps, which are pretty clear. This is probably one of the simplest and easiest grant schemes that there's been for a long time. And then we'll cover any questions, and no doubt there will be some. And we'll answer as many questions as we can today. Any we can't answer, we'll take away and we'll put into the FAQs, which will go on the website over the next couple of days. So then, I am now going to introduce Sally, who is in charge of the overall skills approach within OxLEP. And Sally's going to talk to us about the social contract programme.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ant, and welcome, and thanks everybody for joining us, and good afternoon. It's a lovely day. You'd probably hopefully enjoying a lunch while you're watching this at the same time. And as Ant has mentioned, this apprenticeship scheme is part of the social contract programme, which is a £1.7 million fund. It's come through the Contain Outbreak Management Fund, and it's running till the end of March 2024. And it's really primarily looking at those groups of individuals that have been primarily impacted by the pandemic. And it's the impact on health and well-being, and really in relation to unemployment and barriers to employment, education and training. And the groups of people that we are looking to majoritively support are there on the right of the slide. And this is just one, this scheme, this apprenticeship grant scheme is just one of a series of initiatives that we're using this funding through. We have looked at the economic renewal policy, but also through labour market intelligence to really try and help create initiatives that can be impactful and support those, and particularly as we're coming out of COVID, but really looking at cost of living, this is really, really important. Some of the other work that we're doing is the No Limits programme, which is helping those who are at food larders. They're going to get triage support for becoming work ready for IT, digital inclusion, digital literacy. And we're also doing a virtual mentoring platform, which will help people who might need some support on training, on CV writing, on interview skills. So we will be looking for business mentors. So if you are interested in being a business mentor to help people furthest from the workplace actually get some help and support in writing, getting a job, then please reach out to us. Our email address is below, skills@oxfordshirelep.com. We'd love to hear from you. For the next slide, please, Ant, I'm going to be super quick. because I know you really want to hear about this grant programme, but also part of the initiative that we're doing as part of the social contract is supporting those about 240 businesses we know in Oxfordshire who pay the apprenticeship levy. If they don't utilise all of their levy, 25% of it can be offloaded to other businesses to pay for their apprentices training. And this is part of the programme, as we want to try and encourage more apprenticeship take up for people to have the opportunity for an apprenticeship. So the levy can be spent on training. And we want small, medium-sized businesses to have support to offer apprenticeships. So if you are a large levy payer and would like to have a conversation, a no commitment conversation with our enterprise, our apprentice advisors, again, please reach out to us. All of this is free. Free support. And if you are an SME who would like to access the levy to pay for an apprenticeship training, then again, we are here to support you. So this is part of all of the social contract work. It's running till the end of March 2024. So this is, we really want to be working with you, and really delighted that you're joining with us today. So I'll pass you back on to Ant. Thanks, Ant. Ant, you're on mute.
Of course, novice problem there. And thanks, Sally. So email address there at the bottom of the screen, skills@oxfordshirelep.com. So if you've got any, if you are one of those larger employers and a levy payer and you want to get in touch, do that. Any of the other things that Sally mentioned, use that email address down the bottom. So then I would now like to introduce Eliza. And Eliza is the creative director at Priory Cast Products. She's the one wearing the very glamorous overalls in the middle of the top photo there. But we've invited Eliza because Eliza has, I think, 2 apprentices and won an award through the Oxfordshire Apprenticeship Awards earlier this year for Small Business Apprenticeship Employer. So Eliza, over to you.
Thanks, Ant. Hi, everyone. I'm just here to encourage anyone who's on the fence about getting apprentices that it's a really good idea. We spent a few years umming and ahhing, and to be honest, I had no idea how to go about it. And it just felt like life was too busy to really start that process, even though there's quite a skills gap in our industry. So it's the obvious step to take in terms of bridging that gap. So it was through conversations with OxLEP Skills and the really lovely team there that we discovered that actually it's really quite straightforward. So they were able to match us with our college, the apprenticeship provider, which is Dudley College, and the National Foundry Training Centre. And from that moment of connection, it's been just absolutely straightforward. There's a great government portal for advertising your apprenticeship. Recruiting was far easier than we imagined, and in fact we had many applications for both positions. And we've also managed to have a levy transfer with GlaxoSmithKline, so it hasn't been very expensive at all. And I would just wholeheartedly encourage you to give it a go. There's lots of support along the way, and the 2 chaps we have with us, one's at the end of his 2nd year, the other's at the end of his 1st year, and they've just come on leaps and bounds, and it's such a satisfying way of growing your team. I can't hear you, Ant.
I have to get used to that mute button at the top. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Eliza. And I guess if people have got questions about any of that detail, they can put them in the Q&A, and Eliza will be here at the end and can answer them. But as Eliza said, it's a great way to grow your business and grow your team. So hopefully everybody is now fully committed and just waiting for the detail. So let me give you some of that detail. So the main aim of the Oxfordshire Apprenticeship Grant Scheme is to equip businesses to incentivise Oxfordshire residents to take up an apprenticeship. So that's really important. This is a grant that the business applies for, that's awarded to the business, but that the business then uses to support their apprentice. So the business can't go and spend it on, on odd things. They've got to spend it on supporting the apprentice, i.e. removing barriers. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the detail. Who can apply? Well, any SME business that can demonstrate that they're planning to employ an Oxfordshire resident as an apprentice can apply. Or an SME business that has recently employed an Oxfordshire apprentice, Oxfordshire resident as an apprentice. Now, we're not going to define that recently, but in that second bit, you can apply if your apprentice is struggling. You know, if there's a new barrier, maybe it's the cost of living, maybe it's the price of travel has gone through the roof. But if there's something you can do to help your apprentice to continue and to complete their apprenticeship, then you could also apply. Just a note there that training providers cannot apply on behalf of the business. A training provider that's wishing to take on an apprentice, of course, can apply, but they can't apply on behalf of the business. The business needs to do the application. How much can you apply for? Well, ultimately, the biggest grants that we're going to be giving out is £3,000. In many cases, the grants we're expecting to be between £1,000 and £1,499. So for any Oxfordshire resident, a grant of between £1,000 and £1,499. But if that apprentice happens to be a resident in a specific priority area, and those areas are listed in that table below there, or if they happen to be a care leaver, then the grant can be up to £3,000. So in the application form, you would need to explain that, but that may encourage you to actually go and seek out applicants from some of those areas. And that's one of the key priorities, you know, to help get more people from some of these more challenging areas to get apprentices and get into the world of work. As a business, you can apply for more than one apprentice. So you can apply for 2 grants, 3 grants, for more than one apprentice. Each application on a different application form, please, to keep it straightforward. But when you see the application form, that won't worry you at all because it's very brief. And what can you spend the grant on? So there's 2 slides with this, because there's a wide choice of things. Remember, this is about removing barriers. So it could be that your apprentice needs internet provision at home. Maybe that's not something that they have. And they're going to need that for part of their ongoing learning, you know, when they're not in college. So we can cover internet costs for up to 6 months. Now, the up to 6 months is important. So you need to be having conversations with that apprentice about how they would carry on those things. We can support health and safety equipment where it's not a statutory requirement. And, you know, we would need you to be really clear with us that that isn't a statutory requirement. Specialist occupational equipment, etc. Hopefully you've read ahead. But just want to highlight a couple of things. A laptop. So if you don't normally provide a laptop for your staff, so for instance, in Eliza's example, they don't need a laptop to be doing the casting stuff, but they do need a laptop for their learning. So in Eliza's situation, she might be able to apply for a grant for an apprentice to get a laptop. In the guidance, we're maxing that at £500 on a laptop. So we're not looking to see applications for MacBook Pros at £1,800 and things like that. Childcare. So it could be that your apprentice needs help with covering the childcare costs. That's fine. Disability adaptations that the apprentice needs, etc., etc. Wheels to Work scheme. If you don't know what that is, look it up. But basically, in simple terms, that's getting the apprentice a moped so that they can get back into work. So, you know, what a fantastic offer for a young apprentice. They can start a job, start to earn, start to train, and they get a moped as well. Or a travel permit for public transport, or the purchase of a bike and safety equipment, or their provisional driving license, their driving lessons, etc., etc. You can see this is really broad. It's about removing barriers for that apprentice. And then in bold at the bottom, other items with justification. We don't have all the answers. We don't know what barriers some people may be facing to taking up an apprenticeship. So if you can justify why what you're going to use the grant on will help them, then we'll consider that. So hopefully that is, you know, very straightforward, very simple, and we're putting as much power in the hands of the employers and the apprentices as possible. There are some things you can't spend the grant on. You can't use the grant for salary costs for the apprentice, and you can't give the money to them for them to pay for the things either. You need to purchase the items for them. You need to make the payments as a business. We can't support statutory health and safety equipment or requirements. So if there's something that in your industry that you must provide for your staff, then you must provide it. You can't use this grant for that. You can't use this for the apprenticeship course main training, but have conversations with your provider, and maybe that's where the levy payments can come in. And you can't use this for your statutory apprenticeship mentor salary either. So there are some things that you can't spend the grant on, but you know, if you're going down this journey, then hopefully you've got all of those other things covered. So some key points then. The apprentice must be an Oxfordshire resident, but the business can be based in or outside of Oxfordshire. Now, granted, probably most of the businesses will be based in Oxfordshire, but if your business happens to be just outside of Oxfordshire, you know, South Northamptonshire or somewhere else, and the Oxfordshire resident is travelling to take up the apprenticeship, then you can apply for this grant to help them. We are checking that the resident is Oxfordshire-based, not the business. The application process is very simple. It's one-page form online, and I'll share a link with that shortly. And eligible applications will be funded. We probably should have put that in bold. Eligible applications will be funded. So this isn't competitive. This is first come, first served. So as long as your business isn't going bust, as long as the person is an Oxfordshire resident and you've got all of the apprenticeship things sorted and you apply for eligible items, you'll get this money. The business spends the money on the eligible items or services, which remove barriers to work for the apprentice. That's what this is all about. And you can claim the money as soon as the employee has been with you for at least 30 days. So as soon as that apprentice has been with you for at least 30 days, you can claim the money. So, you know, there may well be applications coming in the next few days from people who've already got an apprentice who know that that apprentice is struggling. And this could be the way in which to help them complete things. For those who are starting apprentices soon, then once they've started, you'll be able to apply for them, or you'll be able to claim the money 30 days after, but get your application in straight away. So timescales, applications start from today. The application form is now live. I will share a link with you shortly. And the first assessment deadline is the 30th of September. So all of the applications we receive up to the 30th of September will be assessed. Now, we're not going to wait until the 30th of September. If we get applications this week, we'll start processing them. But all of the applications before the 30th of September will be assessed and decisions will be made and announced by the 21st of October. So if you're in that cycle, you can be confident that before the end of October, you'd know whether you got this grant or not. And it's highly likely you'd get that notification much sooner.
So next steps is we're going to send you a link with review the guidance and apply there's going to be a sort code. Hopefully we can get that back. And the timescales are the first assessment of the deadline is the 30th of September, this 2022. You'll receive decisions by the 21st of October. And the claim, as soon as funding agreement is signed, then you'll get the money through. Great. And I'm going to hand back to you.
Thank you very much. Apologies there. My internet dropped out for some reason. Really bad timing. So thank you, Sally. It sounds like you had the slides there anyway, so you were able to cover things. Hopefully you've all spotted there's a QR code here for you now. And I've tested this. So if you've got your mobile phone with you and you want to point it at that QR code, then it will take you straight to the website where the application form is and the guidance. If you don't want to do that, then you can see that the web address is not that complicated. It's oxlepbusiness.co.uk, Oxfordshire-apprenticeship-grant-scheme. But we will be sharing these slides as a follow-up this afternoon. And by late afternoon, the video of this webinar, editing out my little dropout there, We'll also be live on the OxLEP YouTube channel with a link on that same page. So you'll be able to come back and look through things and anything you've missed. So that is the major end of the slides. If you've got any questions, you can see there's a very specific and easy to remember email address there at the bottom, Apprenticeship Grant Scheme at oxfordshirelep.com. Again, all of that information will be shared.